The international broadcast was supposed to be a conversation about global cooperation. Flags from around the world hung proudly above the LED-lit studio stage. Presidents, journalists, and diplomats were seated under glowing panels, their earpieces buzzing as translators whispered in their ears. U.S. President Donald Trump sat on one side of the table, eyes darting from camera to camera. Opposite him sat Sierra Leone's president, Julius Maada Bio, composed and silent. Then, Trump leaned forward, tapped his mic twice, and with a smirk barked, "Who even taught you English?" Gasps exploded across the studio. One journalist dropped her pen. A translator removed his earpiece, stunned. Even the audio technician froze. Maada Bio didn't blink. His fingers slowly adjusted his sleeve cuff. He looked at Trump, not with anger, but with something far deeper, a kind of pity, but he said nothing. Not yet. The silence grew heavier than stone. Millions watched from around the world. Twitter caught fire. "Did he just say that?" one post read. Everyone braced for the African president's reply, but Bio, master of timing, stayed calm. Because what he was about to say wasn't just for Trump. It was for the entire world. Maada Bio's eyes scanned the studio. Behind the cameras, behind the lights, he could see African interns holding their breath, some barely out of college. One of them was crying already. He knew what this moment meant. He wasn't just sitting across from Trump. He was sitting across from centuries of disrespect. The studio moderator, visibly shaken, fumbled with her tablet. "Mr. President Bio, would you like to respond?" Bio took the mic in his hand gently, as if it were something sacred. He looked at Trump. "I speak English," he began softly, "because it was forced upon my people. Through chains, through pain, through stolen names and stolen tongues." A chill passed through the room. "But the way I speak it now," Bio continued, "is not because of colonization. It's because I chose to turn pain into power. And unlike you, I don't speak to insult. I speak to uplift." The room fell dead silent. Trump's grin disappeared. Even the cameramen stopped moving. Somewhere backstage, a young African-American producer whispered, "Oh my God." The world was no longer watching a debate. They were witnessing a reckoning. President Bio didn't stop there. He turned toward the camera. "When I was a child in Tijoux," he said quietly, "we had only one blackboard for the entire school. Some days we sat on the ground because there weren't enough desks. But we still showed up. We believed learning could change something, anything." The image of that dusty schoolhouse flickered across the hearts of viewers everywhere. He paused. One day our teacher, a man who walked miles just to teach us, was beaten for trying to open a second classroom. Why? Because it was seen as dangerous to educate poor African children. He looked at Trump again. His voice did not shake. "So when you ask who taught me English, you mock more than me. You insult every African who's ever walked barefoot to school, every child who studied by candlelight, every teacher who gave his life for a chalkboard." A tear rolled down the cheek of the female anchor sitting nearby. She wasn't alone. Around the world, people clutched their phones tighter, blinked back tears, leaned forward. Trump didn't speak. He just sat there, face pale, jaw locked, and the world held its breath. "So," Maada Bio's voice softened, "I didn't grow up in a palace. I wasn't handed a silver spoon. I lost my father when I was just a boy." He took a short breath, then continued, "My mother raised us alone. Some days, we had nothing but cassava leaves and salt water for dinner. But she never stopped believing we were meant for more." Cameras zoomed in slowly. Trump sat motionless. "I walked to school barefoot. Sometimes I sold charcoal to buy a pencil. One time I was chased out of class because I didn't have shoes. But I came back the next day." A hush fell over the audience. "And yes, I learned English, but not just from books. I learned it from struggle, from listening, from dreaming." A single tear escaped down his cheek, and he didn't wipe it away. So, when you ask me who taught me English, you insult the woman who worked herself to the bone so her orphaned son could one day sit across from the likes of you. Silence. Not even a breath could be heard. And somewhere in Sierra Leone, a mother watching on a tiny TV began to cry. Mata Bio reached into his suit pocket. Cameras zoomed in as he unfolded a small, weathered piece of paper. "I carry this with me everywhere," he said. He held it up. "It's a letter my mother wrote the day I left for military training. She had never been to school, but she told me to always speak for those who have no microphone." He looked into the camera. "Mama wrote, 'Don't let them laugh at your silence. Learn to speak so that one day the world will listen, not just to you, but to all the children who still walk to school with torn shoes.'" The camera cut to a few journalists in the studio. 2 were crying. One white journalist took off her glasses to wipe her eyes. "I joined the military not for power," Bio continued, "but because I wanted to protect children who had no one to speak for them. English didn't save me, but I used it to save others." His voice cracked, but he kept going. "I never wanted a spotlight, but maybe this moment isn't about me at all." Trump remained silent, and millions watching felt a lump rise in their throat. As President Bio sat back, there was no applause, only silence. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was heavy, full, electric. Even Trump's advisors behind the glass wall looked uneasy. One leaned toward another and whispered, "We didn't expect that." A young African journalist finally broke the silence. "Mr. Bio," she said softly, "can I ask, was there ever a time you gave up?" Bio looked over. His eyes didn't flicker. "Yes," he said. "Once." He paused. "I was 14. I had just been beaten for asking to borrow a textbook. I walked out of school, sat by a river, and decided I would never return." The whole studio leaned in. But then an old man came by, barefoot with one blind eye. He said, "If you stop now, your children will start from your beginning." Bio's voice deepened. "That night, I returned to class, not because I believed in myself, but because that old man believed in me." He smiled faintly. "And now, I sit here, not to prove my English, but to remind the world that every African child deserves to finish the sentence their ancestors began." The room erupted, not in noise, but in emotion. And behind the cameras, the White House team started texting each other nervously. After Mata Bio's words, the studio was swallowed by a silence so thick it felt like a weight pressing on every chest. Trump's confident smirk faltered for the first time. He opened his mouth as if to strike back, but the words caught somewhere between arrogance and doubt. Behind the glass, White House aides exchanged worried glances. The mood had shifted. The atmosphere was no longer a debate, it was a reckoning. Mata Bio sat steady, eyes unwavering. He didn't need to speak anymore. His calm strength spoke volumes. Across the globe, people watching on shaky phones or glowing TVs were wiping tears from their eyes. From the dusty streets of Freetown to the skyscrapers of New York, an unspoken truth was unfolding live. A young mother in Sierra Leone whispered to her child, "This is our time. This is our voice." The camera zoomed in on Trump's face, conflicted, unsettled, silent. This was more than a battle of words. It was a fight for respect, for dignity. Finally, Trump broke the silence. He leaned forward, voice sharper than before, trying to regain control. "English is the language of power. I speak it better than anyone. Maybe you should learn a few lessons." But his words rang hollow. The confidence had slipped, replaced by something brittle. Mata Bio didn't respond immediately. Instead, he looked beyond the cameras, imagining the millions who depended on his strength. "English is not just a language of power. Bio said softly. It is a language of survival. For those of us who had nothing, it was a bridge to hope. He paused, voice steady but thick with feeling. It is a language I use to speak for the voiceless. For children still walking miles barefoot to reach a school that might not have a roof. Trump's eyes narrowed, but Bio's words struck deep, in the room and beyond. The tension cracked like glass. A veteran journalist whispered, "He's not just answering, he's rewriting the story." Matabio leaned forward as if sharing a secret. "I owe much of who I am to a teacher I barely knew," he said quietly. The studio grew still again. She was old and frail, but she taught us more than words. She taught us dignity. He closed his eyes for a moment. "When I was young, she told me, speak with kindness, even to those who don't deserve it. Your words are your legacy." Bio looked at Trump, not with anger, but with quiet resolve. "So I speak English not because I was taught by the best, but because I learned to use my voice to heal, not to harm." As his words echoed, the room seemed to soften. Trump's expression tightened. The cameras captured every second, and millions around the world felt their hearts swell. They weren't just witnessing history. They were witnessing the birth of a new respect, born from humility and strength. Matabio leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but passionate. "My journey isn't just about language," he said. "It's about what language can do. To build, to heal, to unite." The studio lights softened, the flags above seeming to glow brighter. "I didn't learn English just to talk," Bio continued. "I learned it to bring hope to children who still sit in classrooms with broken windows and torn books." He looked at the cameras directly. "To speak for women who walk miles to get clean water. To fight for families rebuilding from war." A tear shimmered in his eye. "That is why I speak English. Not to boast or belittle, but to give a voice to those who have been silenced for far too long." Behind the glass, White House staff shifted uncomfortably. The world watching felt a new kind of power, not from wealth or status, but from humility and purpose. Trump's confident posture faltered slightly as Bio's words echoed. Matabio continued, softer now, as if revealing a secret. "Leadership is not about speaking loudest. It's about listening deepest." He paused. "Every night, I think of the young boys and girls who won't go to bed hungry because of the choices we make today. They don't care who taught me English. They care that I'm fighting for their future." The studio audience sat spellbound. Bio's steady gaze seemed to pierce through screens, touching hearts everywhere. "The burden of leadership is heavy," he said, "but it's a burden I carry gladly. For my people, for my continent, for the world." The tension in the room melted into something almost sacred. As the interview progressed, Matabio's calm strength became impossible to ignore. He looked at Trump with quiet dignity. "Sometimes the greatest power is the power to stay silent when others expect you to shout." His words resonated beyond the studio. "I won't let insults or ignorance define me. I'll let my actions do the talking. In the schools we build, in the peace we strive for, in the futures we create." Bio's eyes glistened as he spoke. The cameras captured a leader who did not seek to tear down, but to build up. For millions watching, a leader was born, not in noise or fury, but in quiet, unwavering strength. Trump's smirk had vanished. The world had seen the true meaning of respect. Matabio's calm exterior hid years of sacrifice few ever saw. "I didn't become a leader by chance," he said quietly. "Behind every suit and every speech are nights I spent worrying if my children would eat." He looked down for a moment, voice steady but heavy. "I lost friends to war, family to illness, and sometimes I feared losing myself." The studio felt the weight of his words. Many don't see the lonely moments, the nights when the world sleeps and you're awake, wondering if you're doing enough. He adjusted his cufflinks slowly. But every sacrifice, every hardship, is a step toward hope. Not just for me, but for every child in Sierra Leone dreaming of a better tomorrow. The cameras caught the vulnerability, a rare glimpse behind the leader. So when I stand here speaking English, it's not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor those who never had the chance to speak at all. Matabio's words sparked a silent wave of pride across the world. I carry the hopes of a nation on my shoulders, he said softly, eyes shining. Every word I speak is a promise that Sierra Leone will rise, that our people will thrive. He paused, emotion breaking through. When I see children going to school for the first time, I see a future worth fighting for. When I hear a mother sing to her baby in the village, I hear resilience. The room seemed to breathe with him. I don't claim to be perfect. I'm just a man trying to do right by his people. Bayo's humility touched hearts far beyond the studio. So when someone questions who taught me English, I know they don't understand the power of a nation's pride. Matabio leaned closer to the mic, his voice soft but firm. Words can hurt, words can heal. But silence? Silence can speak louder than any insult. He smiled gently. I choose my words carefully, not to tear down, but to build bridges. The cameras captured the moment, like a painting. In my silence, I carry strength. In my speech, I carry hope. This moment isn't about language. It's about respect. Respect for history, for struggle, for humanity. As his words echoed, viewers felt a deep stirring inside. I stand here not just as president, but as a voice for every silent dream, every unheard prayer. The studio was still. Trump sat quietly, realizing this was a battle he could not win with insults. And the world saw a leader who fought with grace, courage, and unshakable dignity. The studio remained tense as Matabio's words hung in the air. Trump's usual bravado faded into silence. For the first time, the former president seemed unsure. Bayo's calm strength was a storm no insult could shatter. Suddenly, the lead moderator spoke softly. Mr. Trump, what do you say to those watching who see this moment as a lesson in humility and grace? Trump looked away, the cameras catching a flicker of doubt. Bayo leaned forward. This moment isn't about who taught me English. It's about who taught us respect. His voice carried the weight of history, hope, and heart. Respect is learned in hardship, in courage, and in choosing kindness over cruelty. The world watched breathless. As the interview wrapped, something extraordinary happened. The studio lights dimmed, the flags above shimmering softly. Bayo spoke one last time. I am not here to win a battle of words. I am here to honor the millions who fought so I could speak. A tear slipped down his cheek. Millions around the world felt it. The raw honesty, the unspoken pain, the quiet victory. Viewers wiped their eyes, children, mothers, fathers, leaders, all touched by a moment bigger than politics. A young girl in Sierra Leone whispered, "He speaks for me." Matabio stood, ready to leave the stage. Before stepping away, he looked into every camera, every heart. This is the power of a voice, he said. It can break chains or build bridges. Use your voice to speak for those who cannot. Use your words to heal, not hurt. The studio erupted, not in noise, but in silent respect. Trump sat still, humbled in a way few expected. The world had witnessed something rare, a leader who turned an insult into a lesson of hope and dignity. If this story moved you, if it touched your heart and opened your eyes, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell us what this moment means to you. Your voice matters, and together, we can build a world where respect and kindness always win. Don't forget to share this video, because stories like these deserve to be heard by millions. Thank you for being part of this journey.